This morning, Attorney General Jeff Sessions will announce new government tools for the opioid epidemic. Just this week, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who chairs the White House Opioid Abuse Commission, said the government isn't putting nearly enough money into the fight. President Trump declared the epidemic a public health emergency last month, but critics complained that didn't go far enough because it didn't bring additional funding.
In our ongoing series, Issues That Matter, we're taking a closer look at the opioid epidemic. It has taken more than 500,000 lives since the year 2000. Retired Navy Admiral Sandy Winnefeld, CBS News military and homeland security analyst, is with us at the table. For him, this epidemic is very personal and very painful, too. He lost his 19-year-old son, Jonathan, in September to a fentanyl-laced batch of heroin. Jonathan struggled with addiction for several years, and the Winnefeld family is now dedicated to studying this problem and saving other families from the same heartache. Admiral, good morning. Your wife Mary's with you this morning in the green room, and she said it's as close to hell as you can get. And the article that was just released in The Atlantic, I think, is so powerful and so personal, because you say that for most people, it's a simple understanding of what we think opioid addiction is. You think it happens to dysfunctional families with dysfunctional people, and you all were certainly not that.
No, this runs the gamut: rich, poor, black, white, male, female, young, old. It's impacting every element of our society. And I think the public is beginning to become aware that there is an epidemic. We need to do a lot better job of understanding the exact nature of the epidemic and what it's going to take to reverse it.
But let's talk about Jonathan, because you dropped him off at school. 3 days later, you get the phone call. You guys thought everything was okay. He was getting better. Tell us a little bit about his history.
So John grew up as a really good kid, well-liked by all of his teammates, his friends, and the like. But he grew up with anxiety, and it was misdiagnosed as attention deficit. He was prescribed Adderall, which was exactly the wrong thing to do, and that started him down the road to self-medication. One of three, what I would call gateway entry points into addiction, one of which would be a physical injury that gets overprescribed, another is self-medication, and the third is sort of the party entry. John went through 15 months of inpatient therapy and did a really good job. He got his emergency medical technician qualification.
Yeah.
He was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go to school. But that molecule had burrowed itself deeply into his brain.
3 days later, after dropping him off, you get a call.
Right. The worst, most shocking call of my life. We thought he was on such an upward trajectory. He was really excited to be at school, excited to be having his emergency medical technician qualification, and it fooled us. It really fooled us.
Admiral, thank you for your service and all that you and Mary have done for this country, and then also for sharing this personal struggle, because I know you're trying to continue your service to this country and to people to help. One of the interesting things I found too about your beautiful son, Jonathan, too, is what we're learning about the brain.
Right.
And that really struck me about how highly susceptible the brain is to dependency. And you wrote about those gateways. You talked about him being prescribed Adderall, and then using alcohol to come down from the Adderall, and then marijuana. What do we know about marijuana in the brain?
Well, there's an awful lot of research going on right now about that, and there's certainly associated a lot of controversies with that. But everything that I've come to understand is that marijuana doesn't necessarily cause opioid addiction, but it makes the brain more susceptible to it, more welcoming to the morphine molecule that burrows itself deeply into the brain. So I think there are important medical uses for both opioids and marijuana, so we need to be cautious with this. But I do think it makes sense to re-examine the legal age for marijuana. It's much more potent than when we were growing up as kids. It really warrants a lot of research into the impact that it's having, especially on young people.
So even if you can get off, whether it's the alcohol or the drugs that you're using, the brain is constantly craving it, even
it is
that
a
you're
lifelong battle, and the brain literally changes. And we were able to watch over 15 months while Jonathan's brain recovered. He turned back into our son. It was remarkable to see. He went out and got his emergency medical technician qualification. It was sort of, touchdown. This kid is back.
But you said you guys were blinded by the optimism that you missed the signs of the relapse. What did you miss?
Well, we took him up to the mountains to a house for the weekend before he went into school. And he was restless and sweating and shifty, and we just attributed it to maybe too high of a dose of medication for his anxiety and also his nervousness about going to school, because he had just written this powerful essay about wanting to help people who had the same situation he had. And when in fact he was probably experiencing symptoms of withdrawal because he hadn't had the drug in a few days because he was with us.
And tell us why you think this is a national security issue.
It's a national security issue for a couple of reasons. One, cost, right? There's tremendous medical cost associated with this. There's tremendous loss of productivity in the workplace. The original estimate was around $78 billion a year cost to the United States. The White House just recently revised that to over $500 billion a year. That sounds to me like it's more than a public health emergency. It's actually a national emergency. So I think it's something that is really a national emergency and needs to be treated as such, needs to be funded as such. And we need to have some very thoughtful approaches to how we tackle the problem, all of which are very interrelated. You can't do one without the other or you fail.
You know, Admiral, your piece in The Atlantic was heartbreaking, and I'm struck by what you wrote about how difficult it was to find adequate treatment for Jonathan. How is addiction treated in this country? What'd you learn?
Well, there are a host of treatment centers all over the country. They all do different things. They are all maybe specialized in one particular thing. The hardest thing for us was to find a place that would treat the dual diagnosis of anxiety, some sort of mental illness, and addiction. Those are two things that have to be treated together very carefully. Not every facility does that. And unfortunately, in our case, the military medical system wouldn't pay for that.
How are you able to do this, Sandy? Because this happened in September. You guys just had to go through Thanksgiving without him. Christmas is coming. How are you able, and why are you doing it?
A couple of things. You know, this is part of our recovery. Jonathan, in this powerful essay he wrote as an incoming freshman at Denver University, said he wanted to help other people with this problem. So we want to carry his mission forward if we can. We have the ability to do that. We have some very generous, remarkable friends who have helped us both with the intellectual piece of this and with the financial piece of this. And we just started a website up this morning. It's called safeproject.us. It's in its embryonic form. But we
you will make a difference. They were telling me, guys, in the green room that Mike Morrell and his wife were one of the first people that came to your side.
Well, I was rushing back from Boston to be with Mary, and Michael and Mary Beth generously came right over and took care of Mary.
You really need friends at a time like that. Thank you very much for joining us at the table.
Thank you, CBS, for highlighting. And we have a tradition in the military of challenge coins. Instead of doing a prayer card at Jonathan's funeral, we did a challenge coin for Jonathan. I'd like for each of you to have one.
Thank you. You will help people today, Admiral. You and Mary will help people.
Thank you, CBS, for highlighting it.
Thank you very much.
Take a look at that. Yeah, thank you so much, Admiral. We appreciate it.